Look, at the end of the day, I'm approaching the tomorrow's caucus meeting just like any other caucus meting where we talk about issues that are important to Canadians.
You gotta be kidding me. It's not any other caucus meeting.
Do you have a message to your
that's my
colleagues who
approach.
have allegedly signed this letter? Do you have a message to them?
I'm not involved in any of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, oh man, were those reporters out for blood tonight. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today, we're going to be taking a look at the halls of Parliament Hill, as a lot of the reporters were berating the MPs and the cabinet ministers in regards to the upcoming caucus meeting that's supposed to be happening tomorrow, with regards to the letter that about 30 to 40 MPs signed asking Trudeau to step down. Now, before we get into some of that coverage, I do want to take a look at an interview held by David Cochrane and one of the MPs that actually signed this letter. Now, not only did we get confirmation in this interview that the letter exists and there's a lot of signatures, towards the end of this little clip that I'm about to play, he says something that is a little bit surprising.
We start with the Liberal caucus unrest that is poised to move to the next stage tomorrow morning, when the Prime Minister meets Liberal MPs in person. Some MPs want Justin Trudeau to step down, and they're going to make that request face-to-face at tomorrow's caucus meeting. Ken MacDonald is one of the MPs planning to ask the Prime Minister to resign, and he joins me now. Ken MacDonald, it's good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Yes, you as well.
People would not be surprised to see you as part of this effort to have the Prime Minister leave. What is your understanding of how this is supposed to roll out tomorrow in caucus?
Not completely sure. I think somebody will introduce it to the Prime Minister and probably give him the sheet and probably give a bit of a talk on it, I would think. I haven't heard any more on it than that. It's all kind of hush-hush until it actually happens, so
right.
We'll see what happens tomorrow. And the thing about it is, of course, what happens in caucus stays in caucus. I'd be very surprised if anybody comes out of that meeting and talks to reporters or anything about what was said or what was done.
Well, what happens in caucus stays in caucus in theory, Ken MacDonald,
yes.
Because as you know, a lot has gotten out. But
yeah.
okay, I want to just put a couple of things down here as clear facts. You have seen the letter, right? It exists, and you have signed the letter.
I have signed the letter, yes.
Okay, when you signed it, this was what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
It was Thursday, a week, it'd be 2 weeks.
So like the 10th of October, right around then, right that way. Okay, when the House was sitting.
Yeah.
And how many signatures were on the letter at the time you signed it? Because there's talk now that there are as many as 30. Ken Hardy said today he knows 18 people who have personally signed the letter.
Yeah.
How many were there when you had signed it?
I signed, my signature was on the top of a clean page. Mm-hmm. There were other pages underneath it. I didn't leaf through it to see what was below the page I was signing, so I didn't see any names.
But there were signatures there. You saw, so you just didn't scrutinize
them? There were signatures underneath the page that I was signing, but right. I couldn't pick out who it was or who they were.
Okay, and so what you put your name to, is it as simple as we want Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to step down as Liberal leader?
Yes.
Okay, so this is going to be the request that is made to the Prime Minister in caucus tomorrow. I was speaking to someone who's part of this group, because you're all carved up into little pieces where everybody has a piece of it, but nobody knows all of it, yeah. is how it seems. Yeah. And I'm told the plan is for one or more MPs to stand up in caucus, to make the request formally to the Prime Minister, but not necessarily to say how many MPs have signed the effort, but not to necessarily give him the full list of the names.
Okay.
Do you know that to be the case?
No,
have you been told that? Do you know anything other than that? Do you have contrary information to that?
No, I don't have any information on how they plan to present it, whether they're going to give them a copy of it or read out the names or just say a number that's on the document. I don't know.
Okay, so we on this program a week or so ago, Sean Casey came out and said that he thinks the Prime Minister should go. He has later confirmed that he has signed the letter, but that was after he made his intentions clear. You've signed it and said it. Wayne Long has signed it and said it. Obviously, it has to be more than that. You and Wayne Long are not running again. How do you think the Prime Minister will respond to it when it seems a lot of the people behind this effort are anonymous, or in your case, not running federally and leaving?
Yeah, well, it's not just about me not running, it's about who's coming behind me to run. And I would hope that the Liberal Party will take notice of what happens tomorrow and do something about it. If the Prime Minister doesn't go, how does he fix it and come to terms with the people who signed that actual document?
But what is the or else? This is what I'm struggling with here, Ken McDonald, because everyone says, you're signing a letter saying we want the Prime Minister to go, but what's the or else? Because that doesn't seem to be clear, even amongst the people who are planning this.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a definite plan. What I think to myself, and I haven't mentioned this to anyone, is that the thing I'd think about is if the Prime Minister doesn't respond in some way to this letter and the signatories that are on it, what happens when the next confidence vote comes before the House of Commons? Are we going to stand and vote with non-confidence, or are we going to stand and vote with the government? So maybe how the Prime Minister responds to this letter tomorrow might give some indication of, okay, are we okay the way we're going, or do we let the Prime Minister continue as is?
Okay, so wait a minute. I mean, for you to say that voting non-confidence is an option, is that something that's been discussed? Is that something you're thinking about?
I've heard it talked about. I haven't brought it up. It's just something that, in my head, that I think could possibly happen.
Talked about how widely? Like one MP, two MPs, multiple? What are we talking about?
Several MPs.
How serious do you think this is, that they might be willing to do this? Because that's the nuclear option.
I think it'll depend on the response from the Prime Minister, whether he responds tomorrow or in the coming days.
Now, Ken clearly sees this as a long time coming. However, he did openly admit that he's not running again, so it doesn't really matter too much for him. However, he did say that if these 30 to 40 MPs who signed this letter don't kind of get what they want, which is essentially Trudeau stepping down and them getting a new leader, then the next non-confidence vote, whether that's from the Bloc, the Conservatives, whoever puts it forward, these MPs might actually just go and vote non-confidence with them. But as we go back to the halls of Parliament and we check in with those reporters, they were asking a lot of the cabinet ministers and Liberal MPs about this letter, and nobody seemed to know about it, or they openly admitted they never actually have seen this letter yet.
Think of the letter and the dissent.
Look, have you seen the letter? I haven't seen the letter. What's this supposed letter? I haven't seen the letter. I've not seen the letter, and I've not signed the letter. Full stop.
MPs have said they signed it. MPs have said they signed it. Are you saying it's not real?
I haven't seen a letter. Have you seen a letter?
But your cabinet minister,
but I've not talked to anybody. I've not talked to anybody who's actually seen the letter.
Call it a revolt then, but there are 20 to 40 MPs who are expressing non-confidence. So how are you going to?
Tanya, I have not seen a letter, and I've not heard that directly. Tomorrow we're going to have an important conversation.
Forget about a letter. If you have that many MPs concerned about the Prime Minister's leadership, how do you address that?
Do you think this letter where people are calling on the Prime Minister to go anywhere, or this group that's trying to see if he will leave, if that's going anywhere, if it's going to materialize tomorrow?
Couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Have you been approached about the letter, and if you signed it? Or
I've spoken to people who have signed it, but no, I haven't seen the letter.
Is that it's full of opinions, and they're welcome to share them. And I think that's a positive thing. I think that's strong. I think having a debate as a party about our future and where we should go is something that I welcome. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a sign of a strong Democratic caucus. I haven't seen the letter. I guess they know my opinion on it, so I didn't get a copy of it. But I think, these conversations around how we deal with the difficult times that we're in and how we try to find answers and how we try to lead are totally appropriate. So I don't mind my colleagues having these conversations at all.
I'll be the first to tell you I am no Mark Holland fan. However, that was a very sensible answer and probably the best kind of way he could have answered that question. But now when we look at Mark Miller, who has decided to just continuously insult and put down his other colleagues who might have a different view than him, David Cochrane actually asks the MP on his interview about this. So let's watch Mark first and then back to the interview.
Win re-election under his leadership, though, and continue all the work you've been doing for the last 9 years.
Absolutely. But it's up to Canadians to decide. But we have to prove it to the Canadians. And any minute spent on this garbage is a minute that's not spent on Pierre Poilievre and what he wants to do to this country, and I think that's very dangerous.
And that's certainly what you're hearing, like Mark Miller, what he said today.
Yeah,
I mean, he called what you guys are doing garbage. I mean, those are fighting words. That's not, maybe you have a point kind of comments.
Yeah. I didn't hear him. I didn't hear his response or to a question or anything on that. But to say it's garbage, I think, is probably one of the reasons why people signed the actual document. If that's the attitude of a minister, for caucus members to be concerned about something and call it garbage, that is totally dismissing the whole idea of what we're trying to do.
Now, you would think Mark Miller would be a little bit more aware of the things that he's saying after that terrible radio interview and the backlash that he got from that. However, he's like a crazy pyromaniac just pouring kerosene on this already out of control liberal fire. However, David does bring this up in saying that New Brunswick just switched to Liberal. They won there. So don't you think the Liberals can win? And Ken kind of puts it to him, the Liberals are estimated to be in 4th right now. We're not going to have people wanting to run, really, if that's the case.
I just wonder, you are an Atlantic Canadian MP, Sean Casey, you know, Wayne Long, all Atlantic Canadian. We saw people like Serge Cormier, Rene Arsenault vote against the government on the Bloc's demand to increase old age security. A lot of Atlantic Canada there.
I did too.
Right? Yes, I know. But there's a lot of Atlantic Canada there.
Yeah.
The Liberals in New Brunswick had a massive win last night. I mean, people are saying Liberals can't win, and Liberals won. Does that give you pause that maybe you're...
I think the Liberals can win, but you just said a term that I've used before, your best before date. And things I hear from constituents, from supporters, non-supporters, is the same as what Mr. Casey is hearing when you interviewed him, that, you know, they say, we like you, but we can't vote for your leader. So it'll come down to every vote when it counts, I guess, at the end of the day, if the Liberals are going to win a majority government in Ottawa, or even a minority government. The last poll I seen wasn't very flattering to the Liberals. It had, I think the Conservatives had something like 225 seats or somewhere in that range. The official opposition would be the Bloc Québécois, and the NDP would be in 3rd place ahead of the Liberals.
Right.
So how far has it fallen since 2015 to see that the Liberals would be the 4th party, not the 3rd, the 4th, if the election were held on that day?
Now, I think I'm actually more surprised that Ken is as surprised with where the Liberals would be standing in the rankings. They've been at least a 20-point deficit for over a year and a half with the Conservatives, and with every scandal and failure that they've been having, the Bloc and the NDP have slowly been rising. So it isn't that surprising that they've been passed. But when we move back to the halls of the Parliament, post-meeting, they tried to get an interview with Champlain. He kind of wrote him off, saying he had to go get food. Well, they waited for him, and when he returned, one of the questions that was asked was if he supported Trudeau. And I don't know if this was a slip-up or if, you know, he actually didn't hear the question, but take a listen to his answer.
Did you encourage the Prime Minister? Did you encourage the Prime Minister to stay on as leader?
No, and I would say today. But today is about the business of Canadians of Canada. So they had a very good meeting, and
but you just said you didn't encourage the Prime Minister. Yeah. Okay.
So repeat what.
Yeah. So listen to my question. I asked you, did you encourage the Prime Minister to stay on as leader, and you said
no.
Sorry.
I misunderstood your question.
Do you want to be leader?
No, I misunderstood your question.
That's why I'm giving the second chance here. Why did you not encourage the Prime Minister to stay on as leader?
So the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the leader of the Liberal Party, and the Prime Minister is going to lead the Liberal Party in the next election. That's very simple.
The audacity of that guy to stare down that reporter when she clearly asked a straightforward question. He didn't want to listen to it, so he jumped the gun. She gave him a chance to correct it, and then he still decided to be like a little snarky about it in the end. Blows my mind. But this is their programming that they've done. All of these MPs earlier today were just walking down the hall, didn't stop. They just said, I support Trudeau. I support Trudeau. This guy here, he's saying he's a leader of the party. He's a leader of the party. He does what he needs to do. Like, it's just all these talking points. And you actually saw this again when Ken left, Ken MacDonald. They brought in another Liberal MP who isn't part of the signing of these documents. And he goes on to spout how Trudeau was one of the greatest leaders that they've had, and that Pierre Poilievre is going to cause a recession.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's up to the Prime Minister, and I'm looking forward to.
What do you want to see, though? You're a caucus member.
I support Justin Trudeau's leadership. I think he has been a strong and a steadfast leader, someone who has steered our country in the right direction. And what I will urge my colleagues, What Canadians want us to do is focus on the choice. The choice is Pierre Poilievre, whose politics is dangerous and his policies are reckless. Pierre Poilievre every single day stands up in the House of Commons and talks about cutting programs and that are helping Canadians every single day. That is going to cause a recession in the country and is going to really hurt people.
Hate to break it to you, buddy, but people are already hurting. It's already a bit too late for that. It looks already like we're heading into a recession. And Trudeau was the one who steered us actually into it. He hasn't steered us into a prosperous Canada at all. He steered us right into the pit of hell. And for you to be on this show espouting this garbage just shows how disconnected you are as well from any constituents that you have in Ontario, especially. Like, I'm in Ontario. Things are not good here. So for you to make it sound like we've never had it so good, really shows how disconnected, as I said, you guys are. But as always, that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you think that these guys are going to vote non-confidence the next time things come around? Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.